So what I want us to do is to start becoming more conscious, start choosing things in a better way for ourselves, and start creating a life that's going to gear us to really take advantage of the opportunities that are going to show up for us in the years to come.
This podcast is brought to you by The Integrated Human. We work up, down, inside out to plug yourself into your potential. If you want to see what we are up to and what's next, sign up to our newsletter or follow us on social media. If you like what we are doing, we really appreciate it if you can like our post on social media and YouTube and help us grow.
Good morning. Welcome to the Big and Small podcast. I'm Jason Shields, and I'm big.
And I'm Marit Gabrielsen, and I'm the tiny one.
Woo! So this is the last episode of Season 1.
Season 1 in 2021.
I hope you all had a good Christmas. We're getting ready to amp up towards the new year, new beginnings, new everything. Right? The dark season. So it's a time of endings and beginnings.
Yes, it is. We were supposed to have the traditional episode where you recap the year and talk about all the things that happened and didn't happen. And
yeah.
But like this podcast is, we do, like we said before, we grab a cup of coffee and we sit down, and what's up in the moment is what's up in the moment.
That's it.
And although Christmas is a time for many filled with festivities, that doesn't mean that life takes a break.
That's right.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. Life doesn't take a break.
No.
Yeah, you're living every day. Things are rolling and changing, and most of the things in your life you create because you are applying meaning, but sometimes things happen to you and around you that you have to adapt to. So, to open up for Marit to talk a little bit about her life for a moment.
No, it shouldn't laugh, but no. So what happened was that the second day of Christmas, the 26th, my last grandma, she passed away.
That's right. She
fell peacefully asleep. Very happy for that. Her name was Ruth or Ruth for English listeners.
Yeah.
She passed away.
I'm so grateful to her for having given us your father and who gave us you. So, how did that feel, Marit?
Well, to recap how that felt, it's we have to go a little bit further back, because my grandma and granddad met when they were like 20, and they were like now in their 90s, so they've been together the whole life, and it's a very traditional, the old traditional relationship where dad is working, mom is in charge of the house.
Yes.
So she's
just not just the house, but the household.
Household, like she also actually had she was also a hairdresser. So she had like a hair salon in the basement.
Cool.
But she cooked, she took care of the kids, she made clothes, she did everything in the home, and he was bringing in the money, but she was running the household, which we can talk about a later time, but that's also a full-time job.
Yes.
She had 4 boys. Always wanted a girl. Didn't get one. And my name was supposed to be Malin.
Really?
But when I was born, my mom and dad was like, she doesn't look like a Malin. She doesn't look like, she doesn't look like the name.
Yeah.
And then my grandma said that her doll when she was growing up was called Marit.
Yeah.
And if she ever got a girl, she would name her Marit.
Oh.
So that's how I got my name.
That's beautiful.
Actually.
That's beautiful.
Didn't remember that before now. But anyways, they were together their whole life. And when my granddad passed away, that was in a very, he broke his hip and they didn't figure it out. And he was basically just laying in bed and couldn't move. And then just at the end, when they figured out his hip was broken, and that's why he didn't heal, it was too late.
Yeah, exactly.
And I got the message actually when I was fighting the World Championship in not Las Vegas.
Angeles.
It's Los Angeles. 1 or 2 days before I was fighting.
Like, it was 2 days. No, was it? Yeah, it was 2 days because we had that one day when we went to Whole Foods and ate and then.
I got that message 2 days before I was fighting the World Championship.
Yeah.
So that wasn't great. And I think I told you after the funeral there that now my grandma also is gone.
Yeah.
She's still here, but she's gone now. Because I could feel her that, you've been together for now 70 years.
Yes.
And you've been so locked in your thing. So when you lose your spouse at that time, you kind of, you lose yourself as well.
That's it. That's why it's so important to stand on your own feet, that you are yourself with another person instead of being a part of that other person. That's very important, because the problem is that when that person then makes a pivot, or they do something different, or they disappear or die, then what's left? It's very difficult. Then the whole piece of you is gone. You don't even have that piece anymore after 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years. It's crazy, right? So,
and it doesn't matter how good your family is around you. You lose yourself with that person, because you without that person doesn't exist.
Exactly. And this is something that's very important, and this is a thing that people don't really understand about the mourning process, because in your case, your grandmother was suffering quite a bit in the end, right? Because
that was the thing, because I told you that and I told my husband as well then that my she's gone now.
Yeah.
And after his death, which is now 2.5 years ago, I just saw her a couple of times, because I saw that she was disappearing, and she was getting dementia as well.
Yeah.
And a part of this summer, my mom told me straight out that if you want to see your grandma and see some of what's left of her, you need to go now.
Yeah.
And I was put on a spot in a way, because, and this is the interesting thing, because we talked about this before, because society and is telling you to do something.
Yeah.
But your whole being is telling you not to do it.
That's it.
And I needed to sit down, and I needed to ask you this question, because do I need to go and see her? Because if I'm escaping it because it's uncomfortable, then I need to do it.
Yeah.
But if it's the right decision, then I don't want to do it, because I have so few moments with her that I remember, because I had 2 grandmothers, like most people. But I had 2 ones. One that I was extremely close with. You had 3?
Yeah.
I don't have 2. Yeah. But I had one was extremely close to, because she lived in the basement when I grew up. In the apartment in the basement, not in the basement, but in the apartment in the basement. Yes. and that's this other conversation. But that when she died, my life fell apart in many ways, and that led me back to Boston Jiu-Jitsu and you. So it turned out well.
Yes.
But this grandma, I didn't have that of a close relationship with. So the moments I have with her is much fewer than the one I had with the other one. And I really wanted to cherish those moments.
Yeah.
And we had, because I wanted her to be remembered like the way she was for me, not the way she is now. Because like I said, she's not her anymore. And then we had a very good conversation around it. And we talked about a few things. One of them being that I'm the grandchild, not the child. And a child's responsibility is to take care of their parents when they get old.
Yes.
That's not the grandchild's job.
Not your relationship, not your job. You're in a completely different position.
It's kind of the same as the parents are going to raise their kids.
Yes.
And the grandparents going to spoil their grandchildren and do the opposite of what the parents are doing.
Exactly.
The parents are saying, you don't eat candy only on Saturdays. And the grandparents go, here you go, little Johnny. It's Monday, but you deserve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't
tell your mom.
You don't tell your mom about it. Actually, I had that with my granddad. We had like the sugar cubes.
Yeah.
And he would go in there and give me a sugar cube. Like, don't tell your mother. Yeah. Like, okay. And don't tell your grandmother either. Like, okay, thank you. But that's the thing. And I'm like, okay, and then we talked about it, and the more we talked about it, it wasn't the unpleasantness that was the issue. No. It was the role. The role and the fact that I wanted to save her memory. And on top of it, she had said that if I get, she said, we used the word tutlete. Yeah. Which means if I go cray-cray.
Yeah, and basically if I become a little fruity.
If I become fruity, please don't wreck your life for it.
Yeah. That I was traveling, just as an aside, because this is an interesting thing, guys. I was traveling in South Africa with David Berselli, who's a traumatologist, and he's the founder of the Trauma Releasing Exercises, TRE. It's an amazing program for people. Them. It's super good. Athletes can use them to restore their bodies and health. I saw people who were victims of war who came back and they basically got rid of their PTSD with this stuff. It's amazing stuff. And it does
amazing things for everyday stress.
It really does.
I recommend it. If you are in, I just have to put in a little commercial for what we're doing here. Yeah. If we are in Norway, you should look when Siv, your wife, at Voss Kiropraktorkontor are having her courses. We're gonna have 2 courses in the first quarter of the next year. Yeah, it is life changing, it's amazing exercises.
Exactly, and
they're made by David Berselli, right?
Yeah, David Berselli, exactly, and guy's an amazing human being. Anyway, we were traveling through South Africa. Now, you have to understand that South Africa is a very diverse area. You have some of the richest, best, most exquisite restaurants and cultural events and nature there. But you also have a lot of crime and murder. There are murders everywhere. You can't if you are a Westerner, you can't take the train, for example, or a taxi. You have to have a chauffeur because they will murder you. They will, basically, if you take the train, they take your stuff and they throw you off, and you're like, just so that said, you didn't believe this. I didn't believe it
until you went there.
I went there.
That's when you said that. I thought all humans wanted the same. Yeah, and wanted to be good.
Yes, wanted to be good. And then that was one of my aha about totality, about being total. There, in the universe, everything is expressed literally. So you're not going to have good without bad. You're not going to have straight without crooked. You're not going to have high without low. You're not going to have outward without inward. And, you have people who are in a desperate situation. So, for example, my friends, it's not a racist thing. The Somalis went down there after the war and would establish like a store or something like that. And what the neighborhood would do, maybe it was a Zulu neighborhood, they would wait for them to build out their store. And then the neighborhood would just murder them and take their stuff. And they would wait until they had established it, so they got all their goods in there. And then they would just wipe them out. It's like completely normal for them. It's like, that's just what's going to happen. The Somali didn't know that, of course, but that happened over and over and over. The Nigerians went down there, soldiers, and took over apartment complexes, right? So it's a violent area. Okay, people carry guns when they can, even though they're illegal. It's Wild West. Okay, it's Wild West.
It's a totality.
There's a totality area.
You have the best of the best and the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst. So, and I'm on a bus with a bunch of Westerners who obviously are there doing something. We were basically going from these townships to townships, and we were moving around doing trauma releasing exercise seminars and helping people with this. And we walk into we drive up into this town. We drive into the town, and we want to get something to eat. And like, these people don't see outsiders, so people were crowding around the bus, and I'm thinking, oh Lord, here we are. There's like 11 of us, and there's about 100 of them, and they have weapons, and this is not gonna be beautiful. And David said, don't worry, we're good. And I'm like, how can you say we're good? Do you know these people? And he's like, no, but the kids are here. And I'm like, what? Yeah, the children are here. As long as the children are here, we're okay. Because not even the worst people do bad things in front of their own children.
Their own children.
Their own children. Their own children. Okay? Now we'll get back to the grandma situation. This is important. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And first of all, you're dressed respectfully. You don't have any bling bling on. You don't have any, you're not showing off how wealthy you are. And the kids are here. Go out, be nice to the kids, play around. If there's something for you to buy it. Be modest. And we'll see how things are going. And it was a wonderful experience. They were wonderful people. They took us in and we got, treated really well. And, it was an excellent experience. And I learned this principle. So here's the point, guys. Even the worst kind of people in the most desperate kind of situations don't want to do awful things in front of their children. So what that means is when you are at your worst and most desperate, when you're about to die, when you know that you're not presentable, do you really want your grandkids there?
Nah, I don't think so.
Do you really want to? I mean, it's one thing about your kid because your kid, you've changed your relationship with your child when they become the grown up, okay? When your kids have children, they're no longer children. Do you understand?
Yeah, and you have the whole spectrum. Like you grow up and the parents is ruling over you.
Yes.
Then you have like the whole, you have to break free from your parents. But just parents is still your parents until it switches.
Yes.
Until you become the caretaker. Because your parents will always take care of you. Like they had this older woman that was like in her 90s. Yeah. And one day she came into the clinic and you said, wow, you feel better. What happened? Oh yeah, my little girl, she got a seat in a place in the
old folks home.
I'm so happy now she's taken care of.
Yeah.
She's in her 90s.
And she's worried about her daughter who's in her 70s. 70s, right?
Because you take care of your kids all the way until that switches.
Yes.
And the child become the caretaker of the parent.
Yes. And there's usually a switch when the kid when your child has a child and that child becomes a semi-adult, then the parent becomes the caretaker for the grandparent and then the kid basically, it's like a caretaking sandwich that goes up and down. But the point is that your grandmother would not have wanted you to be there in her desperate moments, seeing her at her weakest and worst. Because that's not what you do in front of your grandkids. That's not what you do in front of your children. So there should be no guilt associated to, as a grandchild, avoiding seeing the terror and the horror of a person who's completely broken.
Yeah, and like we talked about, what kind of settled it for me was that I was having to figure out, because I refuse to avoid, like I refuse to avoid the bad things.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to escape it, I need to look at it.
Look at it.
But if I'm not escaping it, I don't need to look at it.
That's it.
And after we figured out, because I'm like, it's not, we had a long conversation about it. But after we were just like, it's I could feel it in my whole heart. It wasn't that the unpleasantness of seeing her. It was more that I wanted to respect those few moments I still have.
Yeah. That's it.
And so at the end now she was not herself anymore. It was kind of, you were wishing for her to go soon, so that
she was wishing to go soon.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we had many conversations about it, but it's you're a total human being. You have spirit, mind, heart, and body.
Yeah.
And like I told you, her spirit is gone, her heart is gone, her mind is gone. It's just that she has a very strong body.
Yeah,
that body is not giving up, man. Like body is so strong.
Yeah.
It was the last thing that was left.
Yeah, that's it.
And finally
the ankle released.
Her body released as well.
That's it.
And so when I got the message, it was very interesting because I was filled with relief.
Mm-hmm.
And joy and happiness
for her,
and just thank you for that was good that you didn't have to be here anymore.
Releasing yourself from your suffering.
You. And at the same time, you're still sad, and you still have a hole is left. And you said something when your mom died to me that made me change the view of death. You have to correct me because I'm not going to say it the right way. But you said something about that, when people die, you're not crying for them. You're not sad for them. What you're sad for is actually that you cannot be with them anymore.
Yeah, it's your loss that you're mourning. It's your loss.
And then that's so true. And just it's different when it's something that didn't expect and it all of a sudden happened.
It's a shock.
Because then it's a shock on top of it.
Yeah.
But when they're older, and like I said, when you're over 85, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I don't care. You lived so long. You can buy a horse for my sake. Like, just do whatever you want. You're so free. Like, you live now.
Yeah.
Do you be unicorn?
Yeah.
Don't be integrated. Be unicorn if that's you want to be.
Be that integrated.
You don't have to be integrated when you're over 85.
No.
In my opinion, do whatever you want to do. But it's your loss, your mourning.
Yeah.
It's your thought of what you should have had that you can't have anymore. But again, this still leaves a hole.
It does. And that's very important, because people are like, well, it leaves a hole. That's a figure of speech, but it's actually not. Because you cannot take yourself out of your context. People are like, well, what do you mean? The old saying that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with and all that stuff. You can't really take me out of my network of people. I am a product of my surroundings, right? And people are, I got here by myself and I did everything. No, you're not. Even though you were brilliant enough to pick the idea up, the idea was still in your environment. The potential was still in your environment. The potential was in you, given to you by who, So you are a creation of your past, of your archetypes, like your mother and father are archetypal. When you're a child, you don't even know your mom's name. She's just mama and papa, right? And over time you realize that they're human beings, that you're a separate human being from them, and that they have individual personalities.
No, my mom didn't have a life before me.
Exactly, right? Of course she didn't.
Mom.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Yeah. Shout out. I own you.
Right.
But the whole point is that inside you have all of these beings, I should say, these projections of your mother and father and your grandmother and grandfathers and the people who came before you that make you up. So when their representation on the outside disappears, like grandma dies or my mom died, my physical pillar of unconditional love disappeared. Imagine that. So when grandma dies, even if you didn't have a lot of contact, they still gave you your father. Her beingness, her gestures, her way of speaking somehow filters through and are in you.
Yeah, and the way she expressed love, for instance, is the way I express love.
Exactly.
In many ways, the way she expressed love was through. I do stuff, but that comes from my dad because he does stuff. Because my grandma did stuff.
Yes.
She did food stuff.
Yeah.
So
she's gonna feed you.
She was the one. When you go to when we had a conversation, in one of the podcasts, I think that, or if it wasn't a podcast, we talk about it with the boys. But when you're on I'm not gonna eat sugar diet, and you go to grandma's and she made pie.
Yeah.
With sugar top.
Yeah.
You're gonna eat that.
You're gonna eat it.
If you have any, excuse the expression, if you can get your head out of your ass and look at her for a second and realize this is her showing your love, you eat that pie.
You eat the pie.
Although you made the New Year's resolution not gonna eat sugar.
Yeah.
You eat that pie because she's expressing love. So she was always making me bread with butter and banana and homemade plum jam,
Ooh, nice.
And every time you went in the door, you get shout food down your throat.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the
and
the
you
grandma,
sit there and
yeah.
you nod and you go, oh, I'm so full.
Yep.
But you go, not thank you. And she wouldn't stop until you said yes. Like she would ask you 15 times.
You sure you don't want it? You sure you don't want it?
And then you go,
yeah,
thank you. And then she started cooking, you know.
Yep, exactly. And the point is that when that outside iconic figure disappears, that leaves a literal energetic hole in your life and an energetic hole in your psyche. And we talked about this before, you know, different emotions have different directions. So sadness, is it an outward going emotion or is it an inward going emotion?
It's inward.
It's inward. And is it a high emotion or a low emotion?
It's a low emotion.
Exactly. So then you're going to feel inward and low. And that's the process of mourning. And what you find that if you respect mourning, doesn't mean that you have to cut out everything else and only do that. But if you at least acknowledge the fact and accept the fact that you have a process of mourning, then you'll realize that area, that energetic field, that hole that's left behind is filled with peace. It's filled with love. It's filled with connection because you're reconnecting with that person inside. Because I have my mother with me all the time now. Before it was only when I was visiting her. Now I have her with me all the time because I went through that integration process, that mourning process of bringing myself to where that hole was, and that actually created a connection with her inside. And of course, I had my best friend here helping me through that process. So it's okay to be happy for a person's release. It's okay. You know, it's not, oh, it's horrible to say it's you're happy for somebody dying. You know, my friend, if you've seen death, sometimes it's...
Because you have to make the change. It's suffering. Something, if it's an accident and it's like
a shock.
It's a shock. They're 30 years old.
Yeah.
That's something. But when you kind of, they're sick, doesn't matter the age. But, and I'm going to put a torch out there now, but, you know, we're so pushing life in one way. But at one point, they're, like I said, they're gone. And it's better to, I feel that it's better than to let them be at peace, you know? So that's why when her body finally gave up, like she was, the last half year, she was falling every week.
Yeah.
Like injuring herself severely.
Yeah.
Like shoulders and hips and like, oh, it's horrible.
It is.
It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, and lots of suffering. And because she had dementia, she wasn't understanding why she was suffering. It was really, it's a difficult situation.
And you have to see your parents, because I was.
You're supporting your parents.
I was supporting my parents in it, and they have to see the mother-in-law and the mother suffering with this.
Yeah.
You know, and at one point it was just, again, it's happiness and joy and peace for her, and then sadness for the hole that she left.
Yes, exactly. And you guys have to understand that a lot of the things that we talk about in the Integrated Human and in the Big and Small podcast are things that Marit and I are experiencing directly, and it's also stuff that we teach. One of these things that I would like to teach all of the men out there, okay? Men, our brains are in general linear, meaning that we think that there's a one directional rail of logic that's going to dominate our world. If you have a deep relationship with a female, you'll notice that doesn't actually fit. And it doesn't mean that what they're saying and doing and feeling is not logical for them or logical in the world, but it may not be linear, okay? Because their brains are more complicated, true. They have more connections between their neurons, true. Neurological fact. And they can think in many directions at the same time. We think very linearly. Therefore, it's very important to understand that you need to be humble. Sometimes when they're saying, leave, you can't do anything, go do your thing, that's not what they need. It's just the only thing they can express at that time. I remember when my wife's grandmother was dying. She came to visit us, and she told us that she was tired. And this is a strong woman, back from she knew the old school matriarch, right?
Oh yeah.
Super, super strong. So before they worked in this in Dale of Norway factory. That's what the Dale-fabrikken, making sweaters and all this stuff. But
yeah, if you look at the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, I think they make sweaters for a lot of the countries now.
Yeah, that's right.
Instance.
Yeah, it's super famous.
Yeah.
Okay, she worked there with Sive's grandfather and the uncle and the aunt as well, Sive's mom. So, but before that, they were farming, and they were working the fields. So the women would work the fields with the men, and then when the men were taking a nap, they would go and make food, so that when the men woke up again, they would have food, and then they would all go back out and work the fields. Like these women were super, super hard. I mean, they super tough. They were hardworking and focused, and
what the matriarchs.
They were real matriarchs. And she came and visited us, and she said, "I'm tired." And then I knew that she was telling me that she was going to die. We had always a really good connection with her. I mean, I have some funny stories about me wrecking dinner and her having too much belief in me. And, we'll talk about that another time. But when she then fell and she broke a hip, people are like, "Oh, I broke a hip and died." Well, what happens is you go to the hospital. And the hospital, though God bless everybody who works there, they're angels, it is a bad place to be when you're sick. Because it's filled with,
especially when you're older, weaker, and sick. Yeah,
because it's filled with antibiotic resistant bugs, like the viruses and the bacteria that they're there are like they're like choice. They're like gourmet because they battle antibiotics and they battle sterilization fluids and chemicals all day long. So the kind of bacteria and viruses that are there are the worst ones. Okay, so most medical doctors who get sick don't want to be there. They want to be at home if they can be, because at home you're used to all the bacteria in your room and in your house, but you're not used to what's up there because it's badass. So you basically know that when somebody injures themselves and they're older, the chance that they die of bronchitis, pneumonia is almost 100%. I mean, it's very, very high. It's very difficult. They don't have the resilience to survive the antibiotics that would be needed to kill the bugs. So they're going down. So we went to visit her and we realized, okay, this is it. This is truly it. Because she can't speak anymore. She's not producing very much urine, but she's still awake, still clear. And it was me and my wife, and we were standing next to her. And this is a pivotal moment, guys. Okay? You need to listen to this. She grabbed my hand and she looked me in the eyes in what I knew was one of her last days on the planet. And she looked at me with so much love. She looked at me with so much love. And I couldn't stand it. It was so overpoweringly terrifying for me to meet a person and be present with a person who's on the end of her life. And she takes that moment to show me, worthless, unexperienced, ridiculous, uncertain me, love. Unconditional, full blast, wavelength love. And to stand in that was like standing in fire. It was like being in a storm for me. And I just felt my knees get weaker and weaker. And I felt myself almost falling to the ground. And I was pulling away and pulling away. And there was just a moment of disappointment from her, because I wasn't strong enough to be there with her. And then she turned to Siv, my wife, who was. She met her grandmother in love, and I was so proud of her. being present and loving in the face of horror, in the face of suffering, in the face of disaster. That's all you actually can give. But it takes a very, very brave heart. It's not about doing something for your loved ones. It's about being there. Be there. Be present and loving. I go back to that moment and I'm so embarrassed. I'm so horrified. I'm so broken that I couldn't stand in the love that she was giving me. Because that was her moment. But imagine what that moment gave me. It gave me the understanding of being present and loving. And I would never want to not be present and loving with a person who needs that, or is in a transition, or is in a horrific situation. And of course, doing what you can do if there's something that needs to be done. But sometimes not saying something is better than saying something. Sometimes just sitting is better than trying to fix something. Being present and loving, and that's what she gave me. So guys, ladies, once you've made the casserole and you clean the house and you fixed everything for that person, sometimes just sitting there and watching chess, watching Magnus Carlsen lose in chess,
or win,
is better than escaping, is better than trying to fix something outside. Of course, everybody's going to give their offering on the altar of that person's suffering, giving what they can. But the most valuable thing, it's not learning about what to say to somebody when they're dying or when they've lost somebody.
Can't say anything.
There's nothing that's going to make it right. And that was my first thing. I realized that I had not been able to be strong in that situation. So I started reading books on death and reading books on how to deal with it. Guess what, guys? None of that shit works. I'm sorry about using that word.
No, but and again, like, in that situation, it was the body giving up and not the mind. So she was still in her body. She was so clear.
Yeah,
and present.
she was 100% clear. That's exactly right. That was it's a different situation.
Yeah, it is, because in this situation I had it. I said I could see it in my grandma's eyes when my granddad died. Exactly. She's left. She's gone now.
Yeah. Grandma left the building.
Yeah.
Grandma
left the building.
Yeah, but that's
and then because you have the we talk about your total human being, spirit, mind, heart, and body, and you can end in one of them before the others.
Yeah.
And it is a one way better to be clear.
Yeah. It is.
But then it makes it harder to stand in it.
It does.
Because then they are still there. So it's then you still have a reason to be there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In a way, because they're still there.
They're still there. You're actually supporting a person. But I mean,
but it's
it's situational.
And it's so difficult to stand in that.
It is.
And especially, like you said, like they are looking at you for the last time, looking at you because they're them looking at you. Exactly. And that's the last time. And then to if you make a deep eye connection with people, and not just look at people, but you connect with their energy, that's I feel it's kind of unpleasant. Because you can feel the energy kind of weaving into each other. I for me it's the feeling if you go into a shower and you get hot water on you and you get the goosebumps all over your body. I get the same from connecting with energy, with other people's energy, and that is can be very very terrifying, especially if they give that much. Yeah, like she did.
She gave an amazing amount, and this is the thing here. When we mourn whose loss?
our own
loss. Exactly. That's the whole point. We're mourning our loss. So when we're crying for a person, we're often crying for ourselves. But so who actually needs support? The dead person or the person who's still living?
The dead person, that's the beautiful thing. The dead person, they have left the building.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're not here anymore. Like I said, they're swimming in the ocean of love. So you have to remember, and because this changed my whole view of death. Because it made it so much more peaceful.
Yeah.
And easier to deal with, because I know I'm mourning.
Yeah.
They're not.
No.
I'm sad because of the hole they left and what I can't have with them anymore.
Exactly.
The conversation I can't have, the moments I can't have,
and the place in the energy field that she's holding for you. She's a matriarch.
But they're at peace.
Yes, they are at peace. So the people who need the support are the people who are left behind. And who did you take care of? Your mom and dad. You took care of the people left behind, and hopefully I've been able to give you some loving presence as well.
And that's the thing. I don't think it's and this comes back. It doesn't always have to do with loss, but it also has to do with depression. When it's the same round that we had when I was dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety and stuff. It's not. You can't always do stuff. You can't do stuff, and at one point you can't ask questions anymore because.
Yeah.
I remember you said this when your mom was sick, that it's so nice for people to ask, so how are you doing, how your mom's doing, but every time people ask you that, you're getting reminded about it.
Yeah, you having to, in a way, relate to the fact that you just lost your mom,
or that she's sick,
or that she's gone, or that you're So
and for one, you say that you are dealing with depression or anything, and you have one piece in your life where you can get a break from it. Yeah. Not escaping from it, but your focus changed to, let's say, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do.
Or work if you're a worker.
Or painting. Yeah. Or you go to this painting club or knitting club.
Yeah.
And then you go to your knitting club, which is your 1 hour of peace that week where you focus on knitting instead of death or pain or depression or
paying your rent
yeah. or whatever. And the first thing the person asks about, how have you been able to pay your rent now? Are your hip okay?
Yeah.
How are you feeling now? Yeah. I know it's hard for you.
How's that mom cancer thing doing?
And then you go, oh yeah, that was the thing. Well, and what you gonna say? And like you say sometimes, you go, do you want to know? Or you're just asking, or you really want to know?
Yeah.
Because people they're doing it out of love and care.
Yeah.
But sometimes, sorry people, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just be there. I'm dealing with something. We both know. Then don't ask the question.
Yeah.
Thing hasn't changed in one day.
Yeah.
My grandma died yesterday.
Yeah.
She's still dead today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still very close.
So how are you doing with that?
I don't know. How can I explain that to you? Because I can't.
Yeah.
So sometimes don't ask the questions. If you know a person, read the room. Like sometimes just be there. Show love. Be love.
Exactly.
Don't ask questions because the person always have to take a stand regarding the situation.
Yeah.
And it's very super difficult because you want to pay respect and show that you care. But sometimes caring is just being.
Yes. And here's another thing that's very interesting, I think. If people are super drunk, you may be angry for them to be angry if they're doing something random. They're spilling on you, or they say something stupid, or they act dumb, or they're jumping on the table in a restaurant and embarrassing the family or whatever. I mean, but you kind of somewhere in your soul and heart understand that they're drunk and they're not really accountable. Though I've never been so drunk that I've not been accountable for what I've done. And you shouldn't ever use that as an excuse.
No.
Right? Right? But the point is that you forgive people who are in an altered state of consciousness for things that aren't necessarily in tune. So when you're sitting with a person who is in an emotional turmoil, they are also in an altered state. So they may tell you to go away, but maybe that's not what they need or want. They may tell you to shut the fuck up when they really need to hear that you love them, and that's what makes it very difficult for linear thinkers.
It makes it also difficult for unlinear thinkers.
Yeah, it does,
that said.
Exactly.
It's not the whole point. It's not easy.
It's not easy. And it's not easy for the person in the situation. It's not easy for the people around. So the only thing that I've found that constantly, consistently works is being loving and present. And present doesn't mean on them all the time. Like, okay, I'm going to follow them to the bathroom. I'm going to watch them make a sandwich, because that can be a little creepy. It
can be a little bit too much.
A little
kind
stocky-ish. Yeah, stocky-ish. But the point is that present means that when you're there, don't be on your mobile phone. If
they watch, I don't know, Barbie movies. You watch Barbie movies with them, and you enjoy watching Barbie movies with them.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to ask to make food. If you're hungry yourself, make yourself some food and make the other person some food.
Yeah.
Put them in front of them. If they're hungry, they will eat.
Yeah. If they're not,
they won't.
They won't eat.
And they will eat it later.
Fine. And they eat it later, or maybe they don't eat it, but then at least you've given your offering to that person.
And you needed, you yourself needed food anyways.
Yeah.
So you're eating. So you make food for both. Like it's simple that way, that you do what's right in front of you.
Yes. Exactly.
And you can ask questions like, is something special you want?
Yeah.
I'm making myself some food. Do you want anything special?
Exactly.
No, I don't want food. You still make the food, put it there. Don't force it, don't shove them down the throat.
Exactly.
But be there. And it's super difficult because you always want to help and make things better. But if you're dealing with loss, if you're dealing with depression, you can't make it better. And that's the whole problem with it. I think especially for men, it's even harder because they just want to fix it.
You want to do something, and you want it to be linear. You want to they say green and you do green and everybody's happy. But that's not the way that situation works, guys.
I may say green, but I want yellow.
Yeah.
Or what I need is yellow.
Need is purple. You want yellow, and you say green. It's like, because you don't know. Because in those situations, it's so chaotic. And what you need and want changes maybe moment to moment, right?
Yeah, and then you're dealing with, like, if you're a woman and you, at least for me, because I'm kind of hitting 6 times at the same time. You are mourning your own loss. You're tired because you haven't slept that well. You don't want to bother other people with it because there's nothing they can do with it.
That's it.
So why do you don't need to affect like 3 layers out. My girlfriend doesn't need to kind of come and knock in my door because they can't change it, and that's not their role. They have their thing. I don't need that.
No.
And you want people to go on with their life because you are doing okay. You are mourning and you have a hole in your heart that you just have to figure out. But at the same time, what you need is people to sit there. But you don't want them to. You also don't want them to stop what they want to do. It's super complicated, the whole situation. So just put the pause button and sit down and watch Barbie movies and
that's it.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever that person's doing, maybe it's sitting there being quiet. You sitting there being quiet's fine. The person wants to chat about something ridiculous. Chat about something ridiculous. But then, be there. Don't be on your mobile phone.
And be loving and present.
Be loving and present.
And because that's very important. Because if you go to, we're going to talk about that on a later point. But when we're going to come to the heart, because we're going to have Steve on the podcast talking about the heart. But
and heart math.
If you go Heart Math Institute, which they have done research on the heart for over 30 years.
Yeah,
like
it's amazing.
Deep research, and they discover stuff that the heart actually has their own brain. The heart sends more signal up to the brain that the brain goes down to the heart.
Yep. As a magnetic field, literally a magnetic field that's 3 meters.
It's 3 meters out, and that's the point. Your heart.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you don't believe in energy. This is science.
Yeah.
They have discovered this. It's literally science.
Yeah.
Like a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Gives energy. You can feel the heat around it.
Yeah.
the heart does the same thing.
It does. It actually,
It actually does. So if you're sitting there,
it's measurable.
And you being angry
Yeah.
at the other person next to you,
Yeah.
when they are dealing with their thing, and you're angry with them, for instance, because you don't know what to do, or in your fallback, for instance, is anger. Mine's anger, one of them. And I'm sitting there being angry because I can't help you. That person feels the anger, if they know it or not.
Yeah.
So then me sitting there makes it more uncomfortable for them, actually.
Can increase it.
It can increase their pain because they feel my anger, because my heart energy field is 3 meters.
Your magnetic field actually changes with your emotional state, and they can actually they can measure it.
They can measure it.
So I remember your husband asked me. He said, "Well, you focus so well on your patients, and you have such a high level of care. I'm also a chiropractor. I want to give the same thing. So what do I need to do?" And I said, "Well, you need to focus on being present and loving and accepting for what the person is, and you also need to think about how you are holding your state. What is your emotional state when you're with your patients? So are you loving and present? Are you accepting? Are you feeling the love for that person? Because when you feel love in your heart, you're actually creating a field of love." And I said, that comes in different layers. And he said, "Well, what do you mean different layers?" And I said, "Well, think about it from 0 to 10. Like if you're a 1, then people don't feel assaulted by you. They feel relatively comfortable." He said, "Well, what's a 10? And I said, 10, then you're a love taser. You get near a person, you're a love taser, basically. People just feel love when you're around, and if you touch them, they actually feel the transference of love." And there's a person, Amachi, and her full name is Mata Amritananda Mai. She's the
hugging saint.
The hugging saint. And she, for her 50th birthday, hugged over 250,000 people.
That's so much on the bucket list.
Do you understand, guys, what that means? And she was just as loving with the first person and the last person. The last person got the same attention. Now, you have to understand that is beyond physical reality. Like she's so present and she's so loving that she holds that for people, and people break down and cry. I have some really great stories that I want to share at one point. But the point is that holding love for that person in your heart while you're sitting with them and really coming back to that is how you become emotionally present with them. Accepting what they are having to do, what their needs are at that point, because at that point they are the focus, not you, right? But though they are the focus, you feeling shitty because they're feeling shitty is not the way. That's not
don't
the right way.
Don't connect with them on the don't get depressed when the person is next to you or are dealing with depression.
Yeah.
Be loving and present. Be loving and present. Hold that. It's work.
Yes.
But it's much better sitting next to them watching Barbie movies.
Yes.
You working on yourself to be loving and present.
That's it.
Than you escaping the unpleasantness into your phone.
And by the way, loving doesn't mean doing everything they say and giving everything they say they want. Loving doesn't mean happy.
It just means love in your heart.
Love in your heart. And guys, if you don't have that, then that's a place.
Then we have something to work on for the next year.
Yes, that's it.
Let's bring love into 2022.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah.
That's it.
So that was the last episode of 2021.
That's amazing. And
it was supposed to be different. Maybe we'll do a recap in the next episode.
They can go back and listen to the episodes. What do you think?
Yeah, they can do that.
Let's keep it current.
Yes. Well, we're gonna do that, but a lot of it's always good. Also, I always forget what actually has happened the last year because nothing is happening fast enough.
So busy.
So
it's crazy.
But I would like to think we have like a couple of minutes left. We didn't have a podcast before this year.
That's right.
We had our first podcast episode launched in March.
That's it.
We now have listeners all over the world.
Yes.
We love the messages we are getting. Thank you for sending.
They
mean so they give the deepest and biggest motivation, and although I don't like motivation itself, it gives you the spark to continue. We really love all the messages you guys are sending to us.
So grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking your time to do that. We all live busy lives, and we know that when you actually send a message to someone, thanking them, it's more than just a message.
Yeah, it's way more than a message. We appreciate you.
We do really appreciate. We're so grateful for all of you guys that are listening.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't say anything more than thank you.
Yeah, we're overwhelmed by all of the love and appreciation that we're getting, and
we have some exciting thoughts for season 2.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, you want to stay tuned.
Yes.
It's off the hook.
Yeah.
Woo!
So thank you guys for listening to us this year, for following us through season 1.
That's it. We love you guys.
The first of many.
Yes. So, remember you matter. Unless you multiply yourself by the speed of light squared, then you're energy. But if you can't be energy, matter.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you felt we added something to your day and hopefully your life. If you want to learn more, subscribe to our newsletter and find us at integrated-human.com. That is integrated-human.com. Integrated Human on YouTube and other social media platforms. Have a great day and thank you again for listening. Love, light, and upgrade from us at the Integrated Human team.